Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television, on City TV. Point of View picks the right topics, we get the right guests, we ask them the relevant questions. And tonight is a busy night. So much is happening. There's news from Turkey about Ghana's Christian Achu. We'll bring you the latest on that if we have it. Initially, there were reports that he was trapped in rubble. Now we're told he's been rescued. We'll give you the details of that as well. In a busy day, as Parliament gets together to reconvene tomorrow, Tuesday, minority leadership have been meeting with the Council of Elders to now ratify, for want of a better word, the new leadership. What's the latest on that? And then our guest has been busy writing long letters. He wrote one on January 30 to the governor of the Bank of Ghana. He hadn't even received a reply. He's written another one to Shraj, asking for a whole lot of things. We'll look at those letters, situation in Burkina Faso, all in the next 1 hour. It's interactive. Get in touch. If you're watching on social media, please like and share. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So tonight the point of view is really packed, but we just have one guest. His name is Mahama Ayariga. He's an MP for Bawku Central. He also happens to be a member of the ECOWAS Parliament, and he's been busy writing long letters. Honorable, welcome to the show. Good evening.
Oh, good evening.
How are you doing?
Oh, well, I'm doing well. And then also, let me say, welcome back to your show also.
Thank you. You are welcoming the host back to the show. I like that. I love that. Thank you for welcoming me back to the show. It's been a good hiatus for me, but thank you for staying true. It's been such a busy period for all of us, and this past week, the minority has kept us busy with your reshuffle. We understand there was a meeting today. You've been writing a lot of letters. In fact, I understand that your case will be called tomorrow.
Yes.
You've taken the matter of the GAT to the Supreme Court. It will be heard. I'll come to that shortly. But I just wanted to remind viewers of what happened today. So the latest in this domestic debt exchange is that Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has been trying to get individual bondholders to agree to some terms. They've revised the terms now. They're saying if you're an individual bondholder older than 59, you will get 5 years bond tenure, 15%. If you're younger than 59, you're going to get 5 years, but you're going to get 10%. How good is that? Let's listen to the minister and just give you some quick highlights on this, because our guest has a letter to the governor of the Bank of Ghana, which letter is basically alleging that this whole thing is a smokescreen for the people around the Minister of Finance and the government to take over people's banks. So let's start with the minister a few minutes before we went on CNR like an hour ago.
At the back of these recent developments, the comprehensive agreement of the key stakeholders and the enhancement of the DDEP, Government 1 expects the full participation of institutional stakeholders and mobilization of all qualified investors to ensure the success of the debt exchange operation. And 2, encourages eligible individual holders to voluntarily tender their holdings. Frankly, fellow citizens, non-participation or a lower than expected turnout for the DDEP will prolong efforts to resolve the current economic crisis. In addition, the prospects of international financial support and other financial assurances will be jeopardized. The development could further put strain and stress on government's capacity to honor key commitments. This is not what we want for our economy. What we want is an economy that is back on track, stable, vibrant, productive, dynamic, meeting the needs of individuals, households, and enterprises, delivering shared and inclusive growth and improving incomes and livelihoods. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow is the final deadline for this program, and we are hopeful that all domestic investors will participate. Let me restate that as a government, our singular motivation for taking this rather difficult road is to restore macroeconomic stability, achieve debt sustainability, and get the economy fully back on track. We know that these are necessary preconditions for creating jobs, safeguarding and enhancing incomes, fostering inclusive growth, and restoring hope to Ghanaians. Through collective hard work and discipline, coupled with the abiding and abundant grace of the Almighty God, we have been focused on avoiding a full-blown economic crisis. I am confident in God's assurance that surely there is a future and your hope will not be cut off. Proverbs 23:18. Our remarkable progress with the ongoing International Monetary Fund program is a significant boost to our recovery efforts. Continuous progress will further steer us away from the slippery precipice we recently faced. Therefore, the momentum must be sustained. Considering the importance of a sustained economic recovery backed by an improved IMF program in the first quarter 2023, it is crucial for groups and individuals to consider the merit of the enhancement.
So you heard the Minister of Finance, among other things, say that the main objective of this is to restore macro stability. He's bent over backwards. He's improved the terms for the domestic individual bond holders. He's also made an offer to banks that they've accepted. You are claiming in your letter that the minister wants to illegally expropriate the property of bank owners. That is very serious. Does his latest concession not sort of weaken your position that this guy is listening? Initially, he gave an offer to the banks. The banks didn't agree. He met them. He gave them a better offer. They agreed. Same for insurance. Same for the fund managers. Now he's met domestic individual bondholders, made them an offer. They didn't agree. He seems to be making concessions. You can't take that away from him.
Well, I mean, the people that he's making those concessions to have been told that if they don't accept those offers, the economy will crash. And when the economy crashes, what they are holding will not be worth the paper on which it is written. So effectively, they have no other option. They don't. Because if they don't accept it, then they lose everything. And that's what the finance minister has been saying. That's the effect of the speech that he delivered, that if we don't go through this, the economy will crash in March. Who wants the economy to crash?
Is that not true?
Exactly. So, but that's not caused by the bondholders. That's caused by the finance minister. So why should they lose their assets or the value of their bonds because of what he did to the economy? So as for their acceptance of his office, it's not an indication that the threat does not exist. And the threat exists in spite of the office, because my argument essentially is this. We saw in the past when the finance minister and the central bank at that time embarked on this financial sector cleanup. Some banks collapsed. The central bank increased the capital adequacy ratio. Some banks could not meet it. And then they said, okay, if you want assistance, go to an organization called GATT.
Ghana Amalgamated Trust PLC.
Okay. They went to GATT. Now, what was the GATT arrangement? GATT itself is not a state institution. GATT is a limited liability entity, incorporated, and the shares being held by NTHC on behalf of the Ministry of Finance. Then the Minister of Finance comes to Parliament and takes a 2 billion Ghana cedis sovereign guarantee for GATT. GATT then goes to the financial market, borrows money, and then uses the money to buy preference shares in the banks that have come to GATT for assistance. At that point, the banks were depressed. So they depressed them, depressed the value of their shares, and buy those shares as preference shares at, a rate that the owners of the bank at that time clearly disputed. But they were desperate. They needed money. So they sold those shares to GATT. Not long thereafter, we saw GATT then go to the Security Exchange Commission and sought to float those shares through an IPO and sell it in the stock exchange. That was where I came in. I said, wait. When you came to Parliament to us, we assumed that you were using a mechanism that will assist the banks to get out of the situation in which they found themselves and then to redeem the shares themselves. But you are going to the Security Exchange Commission, floating those bonds in the stock exchange, and then third parties would end up buying these shares, and one, they will probably pollute the control of the existing owners of the banks, or even just buy majority shares and then exercise full control over these banks. And then these people that we as a parliament thought were helping out would end up losing significant control over their banks. So that was when I protested. And then I went to the Supreme Court. Of course, one of my fundamental issues was even the very legality of GATT as a mechanism for implementing this state assistance. So this matter has dragged on for a while. I mean, probably because of the letter I wrote. Last week, my lawyers were served with hearing notice, and we're going to court tomorrow.
So you mean you sent the initial issue regarding the banks that collapsed in 2018?
Exactly.
And that matter is being heard tomorrow, Tuesday?
Tomorrow, Tuesday, yes.
And this is
then
after the
there's
letter
another
you wrote
problem.
this week?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's another situation that we find ourselves as a result of the problems with the bonds, also created by the same finance minister through his mismanagement of the finances of this country. And then, as you heard him, he's restructuring the bonds, deferring payments. Definitely, these banks are going to suffer liquidity problems as a result of this clear potential for default by the persons that sold the bonds to them. So they will need liquidity support. Again, finance minister tells us that they should go to GATT because he's establishing a financial sector stability fund. And he will use that mechanism to help these banks out. And then I draw attention to the fact that you tried this the first time. We saw that this could lead to these banks losing, the bank owners losing their interest in these banks to third parties. Why are you again asking these banks to go back to GATT under this arrangement? If the financial sector stability fund is a public fund, why do you want to give it to GATT to implement? If it's a private fund, why are you forcing the banks to go to a private entity under arrangement where the private entity is not a Father Christmas? It's not going to give it to them free of charge. It might just give it to them using the same mechanism we saw in the first instance. So buy preference shares, at depressed prices, then subsequently go and offload those shares through an IPO, so, and then these bank owners lose their interest. So you think
the finance ministry has an ulterior motive for the route it's using? With the
that's the only way I see it. That's the only way I see it.
Why are you writing to the governor? Because I'm thinking that whatever is happening cannot be on the blind side of the governor. In fact, I remember in 2020, when the initial banking crisis occurred, the BoG governor said stringent measures were being put in place to detect distressed financial institutions to support them. So it would appear as though the monetary authorities are playing ball with the fiscal authorities. Why are you writing to the governor of the Bank of Ghana to allegedly expose what the Ministry of Finance, you say, is doing?
Accountability mechanisms. The one agency with the primary responsibility to see to the good health of our financial sector is the central bank, the Bank of Ghana. They have primary responsibility. So I'm drawing the attention of the central bank to this creeping expropriation that could happen, where bank owners might lose their interest through the mechanism that the finance minister chooses to use to help them out. So first, he has primary responsibility, the governor of the central bank. If the financial sector crashes, it's on his head, because it's his responsibility. So that's why I draw his attention. The finance minister, I have another opportunity. At the time I wrote this, Parliament was not in session. Is that okay? So tomorrow Parliament resumes. As a Parliament, we have mechanisms for holding ministers accountable. That's the executive accountable. So when Parliament resumes, then we can trigger all those mechanisms that Parliament allows us to use to hold members of the executive accountable. And so you will see those mechanisms being triggered once Parliament resumes. And the ultimate, of course, is the court. As you saw in the last instance, I ended up in the court. So I wrote the governor several letters and got responses from him.
So he's been responding to you?
Yes, and ultimately I went to court.
Has he responded to this
No,
letter?
he has not. He has not yet responded.
So
but he ordinarily responds.
Who is the respondent in tomorrow's case, Tuesday's case?
The Attorney General, and then GATT. They are the two principal respondents.
And
initially it involved
the chief executive.
GATT, yeah, the chief executive, and then of course they have their lawyers.
I see. But has the Bank of Ghana been served?
Bank of Ghana, Security Exchange Commission were initially part, and then they claimed that the remedies really did not directly relate to them.
I see.
So they opted out as parties.
Okay.
But then the Attorney General, because the constitutional matter, basically what I'm saying is that even if the finance minister has to intervene under these circumstances, if they choose GATT and they choose a limited liability company to channel public funds to, first and foremost, that violates Article 192 of the Constitution, because my position that I contend in my writ is that they ought to have come to Parliament to have Parliament establish a public corporation for them. Because really, what GATT is doing is a business. Okay?
So are you,
and secondly,
just to understand, so are you saying GATT is illegal based on your leave tomorrow?
GATT is a limited liability company. Okay? That's a private entity.
So it cannot do the things it cannot asked to do.
The finance minister cannot use it to do the things that it is doing.
So the things it has already done in the matter of the previous banks that collapsed.
My contention is that those are
should
illegal.
be declared null and void.
Those are illegal.
And then what they intend to do as a consequence with the new banks that you believe will need liquidity support.
Exactly.
They should also stop that.
Finance minister cannot establish a public fund and give it to GATT to administer, because GATT is a private limited liability company.
Fair enough.
Shareholding held by NTAC. NTAC is a private entity.
Somebody will ask you to prove that in the first instance, anybody close to the Minister of Finance or in government has benefited from the original collapsed bank, because your very premise is that based on what happened to the banks that collapsed and the usage of GATT and the floating of shares, somehow some private people have benefited and expropriated banks that used to belong to other people. So do you know anybody who has benefited from CBG, GCB? Because indeed, there were banks where 5 banks were merged with CBG, 2 banks went under GCB. So those are the 2 banks we know. So do we know if their shareholder structures change? Do you have any evidence?
That is not the argument. The argument that I put forward is that the mechanism that the finance minister has put in place will ultimately lead to third parties taking over control of these banks through the flotation of the shares. Okay? And my contention is that very often in this part of the world, ultimately those who will do that might just be people who are properly aligned. That's my contention.
Initial public
because
if you float shares, can't anybody buy? You can buy, I can buy.
Yes, but some people might just be lined up to buy.
Or they will prepare themselves.
Some people might just be lined up to buy.
Information.
Exactly.
But you have the information too. You just told me what they are doing.
Some people might just be lined up to buy. It depends on their values and the amounts involved. And basically, the point is this. The point is this. Why would you take sovereign guarantee of the Republic of Ghana, give it to a private entity,
I see,
so that private entity will go and raise funds and come and support the banks? Why not the state using its sovereign guarantee to raise those funds and inject through the central bank into these banks, and then give these banks an opportunity over a period of time to redeem?
Fair enough.
That's my point. The same way, if you announce that you are establishing a Ghana Financial Sector Stability Fund, Ghana Financial Sector Stability Fund, that presupposes that you are establishing a public fund,
I see,
to support these banks.
So
why do you ask them to go to a private entity and pick the money? Why not the central bank?
We'll be in the courts tomorrow to see what happens. I'm sure you'll be there as well, or your lawyers will be there to check this out. But you have to be in Parliament, because Parliament reconvenes on Tuesday. A lot of you are flying down. Just a quick thought. There were lots of meetings in the lead up to this, and we understand the minority leadership met with the Council of Elders. So is it all clear?
Yes, it is. I mean, we've resolved our internal issues, thank God. I have been traveling from Salaga, where I attended a funeral, but I kept monitoring our platforms and then had conversations with our colleagues. The issues have been resolved, so tomorrow we'll see a very orderly transition from one group of leaders.
Does it matter that Haruna was not in that meeting? Because originally, don't forget, when Kaziel was announced, he sort of made a post that he has spoken to Haruna Idrisu. But Haruna Idrisu's only public comment has been to denounce a social media post purportedly coming from him. Looking at the circumstance surrounding all of this, would his presence in that meeting or some appearance or public comment endorsing the leadership not be the evidence we need that really all is well?
I don't know, but I saw a post because I flew on hour and I was monitoring. But I saw a story that indicates that Honorable Haruna Idrisu had a meeting of a sort with our former flag bearer, former President John Dramani Mahama, and I think they have resolved the issue. And I saw another tweet from, I think, or was it a Facebook post by Honorable Muntaka, indicating that he had also met the former
Haruna himself says that he has no social media platform. In a recent statement he posted, he doesn't.
No, this is a story. This is actually a story. I think on Ghana Web.
Attribute saying that Haruna met.
Yes.
But not quoting him.
Well, saying that he met him. So I assume, and it's being discussed on our platforms, and I think there's a general understanding that the two former leaders have agreed, and then tomorrow we should expect to see an orderly transition. So I don't think there will be a problem tomorrow.
Are you a front bencher? Are you looking for, because there's a new team, they will appoint their committee chairs?
Well, I've always been in the front bench, so unless they want to take me out of it.
I see. Interesting. This is the point of view. We're talking to Mahama Ayariga. He's been very busy of late. He wrote a 5-page letter to the governor of the Bank of Ghana talking about the legality of VAT or GAT, and essentially asking that the Minister of Finance be stopped from what he's doing. His case that he took to court will be heard on Tuesday. So if you're watching this on Tuesday, the case is probably being heard as we are on air right now to declare the usage of GAT to do some of the things they want to do illegal. We will come back and go up north because he's also written another letter, this time to the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ. It's a long letter, and he's petitioning that the Ghana Armed Forces be stopped from further violating the human rights of his constituents. We'll try and see the link between all of this and the Sahel region, because as we speak, the Russian foreign minister is in Mali. This is his second visit in 10 days. The French have left Burkina Faso, and the part of Ghana that is being used by people who have been attacked from Burkina Faso into entering Ghana is his constituency. What does he make of that? We'll deal with that when we come back. Stay with us.
Tell me what makes it choco hot.
Mixy choco, Johnny hot. Coco womo, Johnny hot.
I can't say swear.
This is a no.
What?
Manji school for Nisiko. They are the future generation. And now 5 guys say Omunina, Jomo Wallet, and Joe Bieska. But Johnny Cookra.
What? I don't know how. Come on, you're trying to cool. You're trying to hot. It's a mixy choco and a coffee. Tell me what's back why.
Some things are best taken hot, like delicious creamy mixy.
Rami, and the miniscal.
Massa, with all due respect, and now I'm
Hey,
Mixy Choco now in a new pack with a great new taste. Mixy Choco, Mixy Coffee, Channel Hot. This advert is FDA approved.
Get 2 months of Showmax for the price of 1. It's giving double energy. It's giving celebration and kasa. All that scandal. It's giving the perfect storm. Shishi. More epic thrills and detective vibes. You go feel sa. It's giving what it's supposed to be giving and overdose. So subscribe now to get 2 months for only 16 Ghana cedis 99 pesos for a limited time. It's giving Showmax.
Pepsodent introduces charcoal and lemon essence. A unique combination of natural essences whitens teeth naturally For you and family, because every smile matters. New Pepsodent Herbal. Introducing a unique combination of herbal extracts in an antibacterial toothpaste for strong teeth and healthy gums that protects your family and you. Every smile matters.
Dad, including mocha, Cabo has 5 flavors: banana, strawberry, chocolate, coconut. What's the 5th one?
Banana.
Banana?
Okay, Dad. Including mocha, Cabo has 5 flavors: banana, strawberry, chocolate, and coconut. What is the 5th one?
Strawberry.
No.
Are you feeling hot?
Honey, including mocha, Cabo has 5 flavors: strawberry, banana, chocolate, coconut. What's the 5th one?
Chocomalt. Hey! Coconut.
Hey! Nutritious and refreshing, Cowbell has a flavor for everyone.
They think I don't know.
Cowbell, our milk. This advert is FDA approved.
Welcome back. This is still The Point of View. We're live on City TV. Tonight we're dealing with a number of issues. My guest, MP for Bawku Central and a member of the ECOWAS Parliament, Honorable Mahama Ayariga. We've been talking about the domestic debt exchange, his concerns about the use of the Ghana Amalgamated Trust as a vehicle for restoring banks that he believes will suffer. There's a big Supreme Court case tomorrow that he's representing. But he's written another letter. This letter was just dated February 2nd or so, February 3rd. To the Shraj, where he's complaining about various acts of violation of human rights by the members of the armed forces in Bawku. Now, he alleges that 10 people, I think at the time, initially there were 7, now we know there are about 10 people had been killed in Bawku by the armed forces. The armed forces have replied. They have not really denied the people were killed, but they are sort of disputing the circumstances. We'll deal with all of this. But I wanted to situate all of this within the Sahel region. And just last week, City News' Fred Awuni was in Bawku and other parts of the Upper East region, where displaced, particularly women, from the attacks by terrorists in Burkina Faso, sought refuge in our country. Here's a quick overview of that report.
Activities of violent extremists in neighboring Burkina Faso in recent times have led to the death of Burkinabe residents and displaced over 3,000, including women and children. These refugees have sought asylum in Sapeliga in the Bawku West district of the Upper East region. Housed in an uncompleted structure, these refugees are exposed to health hazards, poor shelter, and depend solely on donated foodstuff from local residents or non-governmental organizations. But the support they get is woefully inadequate to meet their daily needs. Some of the refugees share with City News how they came into Ghana.
So reporting there was our Fred Awuni. We are told over 3,000 people had moved into that zone in the past couple of weeks. Now, there have been coups in Mali. There's been a coup in Guinea, and this is 2021. There are a couple of coups as well. Attempted coup in Guinea-Bissau, a coup in Burkina Faso. In Burkina Faso itself, we are told that terrorists have strengthened their grip on the Sahel east and the central north regions. And if you look on your map, I'll show you some of those. Now, we are told there's a tactic of attrition with the use of heavy weapons, the planting of mines, and the destruction of water and power facilities carried out in cities such as Jibo, Pama, and Dori. Sophisticated, improvised explosive devices were also planted along main transport arteries to impede trade and humanitarian access. We are told that between January 25 and February 25 last year, over 60,000 people were displaced in the central north region. On January 31 of last year, the Pony province of Burkina Faso, bordering Cote d'Ivoire, was the scene of an incident where a convoy of civil defense volunteers hit an IED. Assaults on civilians intensified in the east, where educational and other government institutions were also attacked, while infiltrations from Mali continued in the southwest. On 11 June, an attack in the town of Seitenga in the Sahel region resulted in at least 89 deaths and the displacement of over 16,000 people. So the latest influx into Ghana, incidentally through Bawku, should be a matter of concern to everybody, including the MP for Bawku, who is also a member of the ECOWAS Parliament. Before we come to your petition to the armed forces, aren't you, let me say, how concerned are you about the kind of things we are hearing from Burkina Faso?
Well, I mean, as a member of a sub-regional parliament, I've had the opportunity to travel to all these countries, Mali, you know, Niger, Burkina Faso, that axis. And to some extent, I understand what is happening there. I'm not so worried about it in relation to Ghana, because in many of those countries, the state itself, at a certain point, lost legitimacy. Just lost legitimacy. Okay. The state was out of touch with a significant portion of its territory. That's to say, the state wasn't connected to those spaces. No roads to those places, no electricity, no water, no school, nothing. Okay? So it got to a point where they just decided that they wanted to live without the state. And indeed, the state became a target. And of course, it appeared to me they didn't even understand what was happening. Because instead of trying to restructure the state in such a way that everybody was included, they went on the offensive. And so these people rebelled. And then, of course, others took advantage. Some parasitic characters. Because in all these places are some dotted mineral resources. Galamsey is not only in Ghana. I mean, there are mineral deposits in parts of these countries and these areas. So people went in there and illegally tried to exploit these resources. And so they pumped in resources to finance these people to ward off state intervention so that they could have the freedom to exploit as much as they needed. So one thing led to the other, to a point where the state just lost control. Of course, their problem with the French is that they thought the French would be able to help. But you have to help yourself first, and then your allies would help you. So they then brought in the Russians to see if the Russians could help. So that's the picture. Now, why do I say I'm not so worried in relation to Ghana? I mean, our institutions and the mechanisms that we have put in place. For instance, our democracy is functional. No matter how disgruntled you are with our democracy, it is a functioning democracy. You can get remedies if you fight for it. Elections do occur regularly. If you build the capacity to monitor it, you can get the best outcome. And indeed, if you get the votes, you could actually have a change without having to use force. So there's an extent to which the institutions are functioning. And we have a national financing architecture that ensures that state resources are distributed across the country. So you can go to the most remote parts of the country, you still see electricity. You still see schools being built. You see clinics being built. You see the presence of the state. The state had posted doctors, nurses, teachers, public servants to provide services. There are vast territories in most of these countries that we're talking about that you just go to and there's no presence of the state whatsoever. They've never known the state, what is called the state.
So your point is that even though these a lot of these states may not be functioning as proper states,
Yeah.
Ghana is working.
Ghana is working.
So, but people are coming. 4,000 people are winning reports.
No.
One day.
They come and they go. You see, along the borders, the tribes straddle across the borders. For instance, you have Kusasis on the Ghana side, but you also have Kusasis on the Burkina side. You know, across Bawku, Binduri, Pusga, you know. And then you go to the west and the Dagatis and all those other ethnic groups along the borders. They also have, you know, tribesmen across the border. You know that these boundaries were artificial. So if there's reprisal or any incident that threatens security on the other side, they just walk across to sometimes distant relatives on the other side, or people that they speak the same common language. For instance, the tape you played, the lady was speaking Moshi. I have a lot of people in my constituency who are Moshi people. I mean, who have families on the other side. So if there's a problem, they just cross over and then they live with their families.
If victims can come easily, what makes you think perpetrators can also come?
Of course, perpetrators can also come. But then...
Because our borders are supposedly very porous.
They are porous, not supposedly. They are porous. I mean, I live very close to the border with Burkina Faso, and I can tell you that, you know, I can just walk across any time, you know, of the day. So they are porous, but perpetrators can come in only if the environment exists for them to cause mayhem. But I don't think that
I wanted to
exists.
show you a map that RFI put together of the Burkina, Niger, Mali, Ghana enclave.
Yeah.
It shows the number of terrorist attacks since January 2022 in red. I don't know if they have it. It's in red. I mean, and the clustering of the, I don't know if this is the map. This is a different one. The clustering of the I mean, the number of times that attacks have happened close to our border is getting significant.
Yes.
Right, and Bawku is insecure because as I got on air, I was told that one person had been killed. All right, as we just got on air, this story just came in for City News that it says one person has been shot dead in Bawku, barely a few hours after a visit by the Upper East Regional RECSEC in the troubled town. The deceased was shot dead at Sabongari, a suburb of Bawku, on the evening of Monday, so today. The death of the deceased is linked to the prolonged conflict between the two main groups. Now, this is what I was trying to show you. Now, all the red dots are places where attacks have occurred. Now, look at the clustering around
Bawku.
That is absolutely crazy.
No, just across the border, there's been a lot of incidents, and we get the reports all the time when they occur. Because like you indicated, there are people with families there, and then we hear talk in town about these incidents. But
you are not concerned that that red wave could come into Ghana, because it's scattered all over Niger, Mali, parts of it. And look at Benin. You notice that Benin has some of the red dots. Togo has. Ghana is the only country that has it on the line. You don't suppose that, in fact, we are told that in Benin there have been about 8 or 9 terrorist incidents in northern Benin, a few in northern Togo. None has really entered Ghana. And you don't suppose that Bawku could give the terrorists the opportunity to bring their mayhem into this country?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Bawku will not be the place where this will happen. You see, the point, for instance, we'll get to the issue of the military later and what they did in Bawku. You see, people will turn against the state when they don't have remedies, when they don't have opportunities to vindicate their rights. But if the state functions in such a way that everybody feels protected by the state, it is most unlikely that they will turn against the state. And the state really is what? It's institutions. In Burkina Faso, those places that you saw the clustering of attacks, trust me, people from Bawku drive across those places with trucks to Niger, with onions, with salt, with all sort of commodities. They drive through that territory. If they stop you and they found a national identity card or a document, some public document that associates you with the state of Burkina Faso, you will be attacked. They might just kill you. So they are attacking the state. They have issues with the state. And so if you are a public worker and they discover that you are a public worker and you are in that territory, they will attack you. And I get the reports all the time from drivers who carry all sorts of commodities to Niger and Mali and other places. So these are people who have decided to attack their state. They have issues with the state. We shouldn't create a situation where our populace will have issues with their state. That's the first thing you never do. Because when the populace, they have issues with the state, and they don't feel that the mechanisms within the state affords them a remedy, that is when the state becomes for them a legitimate target.
Wow. I'll come back to your letter when I come back from a break, because your letter is quite serious. You mentioned the names of people who have been killed. You mentioned their family. Some have multiple wives, multiple kids. And you are starting with Shraj. The armed forces have also responded. I'm not too sure if it's to your letter or to a general letter, but this a couple of responses on the armed forces. We'll read them when we come back. This is the point of view tonight. We're focusing in our second part on the northeastern part of Ghana with Mahama Ayariga, the MP for Bawku Central. Stay with us.
Welcome to Jamila Home, a signature business that houses the most luxurious antique and contemporary furniture. We stock presidential, royal, ministerial, and executive furniture with complimentary decor. We have a wide selection of beautifully maintained pieces, such as the amazing Windsor chairs, with one of the largest choices of genuine Regency and Victorian dining furniture, which once stood for England's finest craftsmanship. Renowned across the world for its luxurious and detailed features, alongside a brilliant blend of Italian contemporary Versace royal set in absolute elegance. Visit our website www.jamilahome.com. Contact us via phone call and WhatsApp on 0302 437 228 and 0205 555 525. We are located at 13 Westland Boulevard, Accra. Jamila Home, your first and best furniture showroom in Ghana and the world.
Chami, what makes it choco hot?
Mixy choco, Johnny hot, cocoa womo, Johnny hot.
I can't see this way.
This is no.
What?
Manji school for Nisikao. They are the future generation. And now 5 guys say Omunyina Jomo Wallet Manju Bieska. But Chani Kukra.
What? I don't know how. Come on, you're trying to pull. You're trying to hurt. This is mixing choco and coffee. Chami, what's back why?
Some things are best taken hot, like delicious creamy mixing.
Grammy and the miniscal.
Master, with all due respect, and now Pakani.
Hey,
Mixy Choco now in a new pack with a great new taste. Mixy Choco, Mixy Coffee, Channel Hot. This advert is FDA approved.
Welcome back. We're still on the point of view tonight. We're looking at issues dear to the heart of the MP for Bawku Central, Mahama Ayariga. First matter had to do with the GATT. This second issue has to do with his own constituent. I have in front of me a letter dated February 3, which is Friday, directed at the Commissioner of Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and it's titled Complaint of Various Acts of Violation of Human Rights by Members of the Ghana Armed Forces in Bawku. And just a few things he says. He says he's writing in his capacity as MP, lodging a complaint pertaining to several acts of violation of human rights of residents in Bawku by members of the armed forces. And among the rights violated include the sacred right to life of 10 citizens who were shot to death by members of the armed forces engaged in Operation Gong Gong in Bawku on Tuesday, 31st January and Wednesday, 1st February. children's rights, women's rights, and property rights were violated. Now he goes on to say the military do not deny shooting and killing these residents of Bawku. A statement issued by the military authorities on 2nd February 2023 admitting responsibility for the killings is attached. And then he goes on to say he rejects the self-serving cover-up account of the circumstances surrounding the brutal killings contained in the statement of the armed forces in Operation Gong Gong, and calls for an investigation by SRAJ so that eyewitnesses can give an account which is more accurate of the brutality with which the military executed the killings. So you seem to be saying that the military had a more sinister motive in those shootings, because from their description, they sort of give a description of specific incidents. And they are basically saying this was part of their operation, some was in self-defense, some of the people were not cooperating, that type of thing. You are saying that this was deliberate, like murder, that's what you're suggesting, of 10 innocent citizens.
Absolutely. I mean, let me just indicate that, first and foremost, I am one person who at all times will call for peace in Bawku. That I will never encourage any group to take the law into its own hands and to kill another citizen of Bawku. I mean, you've just announced that somebody has been killed. When I was driving here this evening, I got the report, and I've been trying to find out exactly what happened. No matter what happened, no one has a right to kill another person in Bawku, no matter what happened. I mean, people cannot set boundaries and say, you can cross this boundary, I can cross that boundary. And if I dare cross the boundary, my life will be taken. That we all have to condemn. We have to find a way of stopping. But what the soldiers did, and yesterday I was there. Yesterday I walked the entire area. I tried to trace the steps of everybody, the movement of the troops, and then the people who were killed. And the picture that was painted was one of cold-blooded execution of citizens who were not in any way fighting the soldiers. That's why I'm saying that I reject the self-serving explanation. Because
this is their February the 2nd statement.
Yes.
I think it's important for me to read some highlights. Yes, attention of Ghana forces has been drawn to allegations by some individuals in Bawku that soldiers deployed on Operation Gong Gong to restore calm in the area are killing innocent citizens, innocent Kusasi youth and women in their homes and communities. They also allege the military personnel have seized Zogin, a Kusasi community. GF wishes to categorically state that these allegations are false and unfounded. Then they start listing the things. For example, information received from the NIB by Operation Gong Gong team earlier this week indicates that passengers on board a bus traveling from Accra to Misiga were attacked by unknown gunmen around Balwegla on the Bawku highway. The gunmen fired through the tire and engine compartment of the vehicle. The bus currently parked at Asylum Down, Bawku Divisional Police Station for investigation. Then they talk about a Rhino truck hit, driver of the truck sustained a gunshot wound on the left foot, currently receiving treatment. February 1, gunshot was heard around South Natinga in Bawku. Patrol team rushed to the scene. Suspect Abdul Malik Haruna arrested, handed over to the Bawku police. Placed on record that based on a tip-off by the police of the hideout of the suspected alleged to be involved in the firing incident on the Bawku troops, they conducted and cordoned off a search operation area, and then they listed the name of the suspects, all handed over to the police. So they are mentioning that specific people were handed over to the police. And they talk about a separate incident where sporadic firing was heard, in which troops engaged them and neutralized 6 of them. So this is the incident where they admitted shooting some people. But they are basically saying, in a separate incident, sporadic firing was heard around Sabongari General area. A patrol team dispatched to assess the situation spotted unknown armed men at Gozesi Valley, wearing black t-shirts with black hoodies. Troops engaged them and neutralized 6 armed men. During the engagement, some armed men took cover in a madhouse within the immediate vicinity to engage the team. One of the armed men attempted to attack troops with a cutlass, but was disarmed in the process. During the operation, a local woman found with a gunshot injury on her left hand was sent to Bawku Presby Hospital by troops for treatment. So this is the only admission they've made, and this is for 6 people. You are saying they've killed 10 people, and you are. So what's the evidence of your account?
Well, I mean, the 10 people, the first 2 were in Patalmi area, and those were shot on the 26th of January. So the statement does not cover those
Okay.
ones.
Okay.
Then the 7 other people, those 6 they claim to have liquidated, and a 12-year-old boy that they killed. So that will be 8, in addition to the 2 that were shot on the 26th in Patalme. So that will be 10. Do you get it now?
Yeah.
Good. Now, this account, the only weapon that the soldiers mention in their statement is a cutlass. Just look through it. Read it again. Read it. You can read it 3 times.
In separate incidents, sporadic firing was heard around Sabongari General. A patrol team dispatched to assess the situation spotted unknown armed men at Gosesi Valley wearing black t-shirts with black waist. So they didn't mention the arms.
Good.
Troops engaged them and neutralized 6 of them.
So when you neutralize 6 armed men, we expect to see at least 1 weapon. Did the statement indicate that they retrieved any weapon from them?
No, it does not.
Clearly, these were not armed men. These were not armed men. I went there. These were people working in their garden, and they were shot in the garden.
Really?
Yes.
Why would they be shot? Why would the armed forces do that?
That is what I don't understand. That's what everybody there
But do you
does
know
not
if
understand.
they were hooded?
They were not hooded. They were not hooded.
So you are saying this
they
is
were shot in the garden. I went there. I have pictures. I have pictures of the blood. Look, let me tell you one pathetic story. There is a man who was fetching water in the garden to sell to gardeners. He saw the soldiers coming. He left his donkey cart, ran to the nearest house, got in there. The soldiers pursued him into that house, pulled him out of the house, back to the garden, and shot the man there. His 12-year-old son, who was with him, ran back home. They kept shooting this small boy and missing. And I saw the holes created on the wall behind the house of this 12-year-old boy and the man that they had killed. And he went in front of the house, jumped into a mud barn which had hay, stored in it, in an attempt to hide from the soldiers. This is a 12-year-old boy who had that sense that let me run into
Was this videoed or this is an account people are giving?
This is an account, because let me tell you the end of the story. The soldiers got there, according to eyewitnesses, including the mother of this child. The soldiers got there and shot into the barn and sparked fire. And the fire burnt this 12-year-old boy. He died in it. The mother ran out, took a bucket, tried to fetch water and pour the water. The woman they referred to that, they saw a woman whose hand is injured. That is the mother of the 12-year-old boy who took a bucket, tried to fetch water and pour into the barn to save her 12-year-old boy. They refused. She persisted, and they shot her hand. And she's at the hospital. So this is the woman whose husband has been shot by the soldiers dead. Her 12-year-old son bent in front of her and shot by soldiers. And then she herself shot. And these people were in army uniform, and they had an armor car. So you can't even tell me that they are not members of the Ghana Armed Forces. And community members saw this. The assemblyman for the area, upon being alerted, ran to the scene and confronted the soldiers.
So where this place?
And they beat him up. They beat him mercilessly until he was bleeding profusely.
This Sabongari area, is it within Bawku town?
Yes, it's within Bawku town. But these killings took place in Zogen, which is near Sabongari, but not Sabongari itself. It's a community called Zogen in the Misga electoral area. The soldiers did that. I saw why they killed these people. Why they killed these people, they were not armed. They did not retrieve anything. They themselves, in their statement, only admit that somebody was holding a cutlass. This was a farmer in his garden holding his cutlass, for God's sake, in his garden.
So why Shrash? If this sounds very gruesome.
Very gruesome.
Why are you using Shrash as your first sort of port of call?
Because I believe that somebody who is a neutral, impartial investigator ought to go and investigate.
Okay.
Not the security agencies themselves. You can't say the police should go and investigate the conduct of the armed forces. Even though I know that the police have invited eyewitnesses. The police actually came there. They took the bodies from the soldiers. Indeed, I'm told that one of them who was hiding in a tree, when the soldiers found out that he was hiding in the tree, ordered him to come down, and luckily by that time the police had arrived, and they wanted to kill him in front of the police. The police refused.
So does that mean that the police will be witnesses in the Shraj matter?
They saw the soldiers. They also saw the victims. They actually took the bodies. And they invited the community members to come and give statements yesterday when I was there. So there are witnesses. There are eyewitnesses to what happened.
Okay.
And this is the point that I'm making, that in a democracy, when citizens suffer such affliction and there's no remedy, you are sowing the seeds of radicalization.
Wow.
They must feel that if a state institution goes wrong, there is a remedy. There can be justice. Then they can count on the state again, some aspect of the state. In these countries where these things are happening, people are being killed and then nobody is fighting for anybody. So the people are fighting for themselves.
I see. This is very grim. I'm sure we'll follow up on this as well. Just to give you a quick update, we tried to reach Turkey for a latest update. We're told that there has been an update. More personnel have been deployed to intensify search in the city where Christian Achu is residing, where the incident occurred. So we are unable to confirm his status because there are conflicting reports as to whether he's alive, whether he's still being rescued or not. But we'll keep an eye on this, and throughout the news cycle, we'll bring you an update. But we are told that the search operation is still on, and we'll continue to pray with Christian Achu and his family. We've been talking to Mahama Ayariga, MP for Bawku Central, on a number of issues, including the debt exchange, which he believes the finance ministry is using as a smokescreen to expropriate private property in banks using the GATT vehicle. The matter will be heard in Supreme Court, an initial part of the GATT matter on Tuesday. He also has written the Shraj complaint about the armed forces killing 10 people. The armed forces has not responded to this latest letter yet, but we believe as the story develops, we'll bring you an update as well. Thank you for being on the show. Good luck in Parliament. We'll be there live to cover. We hope the legislators will do the best for Ghana. My name is Bernard Avle. Thank you. A big thank you to Selom Adonu for sitting in for me in the past 6 months, and for the team for holding the fort. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.